Happy New Year and welcome to Our Issues Milwaukee. I'm your host, Andrea Williams. Our focus today, it's on sexual assault. Every 98 seconds, someone in the U.S. is sexually assaulted, and that means every single day, more than 570 people experience sexual violence in this country. During this half hour, we'll meet a young artist who's not only using her voice to showcase her talent, but to also bring awareness to life issues like sexual assault. But first, I would like to introduce you to attorney Rachel Monaco-Wilcox. She's the CEO and founder of Lotus Legal Clinic in Milwaukee. Hi, Rachel.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on the show today.
It's a pleasure to have you here. And right off the bat, I want you to tell us about Lotus Legal Clinic and how you serve the community.
Sure. So Lotus is a Wisconsin organization. We serve statewide. We're free lawyers for victims of sexual assault and human trafficking, sexual abuse and stalking. And we are really passionate about the fact that survivors need specialized legal help, and we believe it needs to be free, that no survivor should ever have to pay a private attorney for the services to help them go through the justice system, either for prosecuting their case against an offender, or if they have been caught up in human trafficking or sexual exploitation, that they are serving as a witness or a victim in a case, they also deserve to have their own lawyer to help walk that process through. It can be a very damaging process.
Wow, I think what you're doing is amazing, and that's exactly why I asked you to be here today, so people can know what you're doing and help spread the word to those who need to know. There is a distinct difference between sexual assault and sexual harassment, right?
There is, and this is important because right now this cultural conversation is huge. People with hashtag #MeToo and hashtag why I didn't report. And it's true that on a scale, all of these things are experiences of violence. They're experiences of sexual violence to individuals. But under the law, it's important to note that there's so many complexities, that sexual harassment is defined completely different from sexual assault. And they can overlap, but they are two different things. And there's obviously gradations. So this has been part of the cultural conversation where there's some backlash, is to say, you know, everybody who reports hashtag #MeToo and says I have a story to tell about my victimization, well, you know, there are differences. Somebody who was gang raped in an alley did not have the same experience as somebody who got pinched behind the copy machine by a boss or by a supervisor. The dynamics of power and control might be similar. Victims have similar trauma, but it's really important for us to understand the complexities and the subtleties of every individual's experiences.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's so important that you and your team are there to help people better understand when they have a case and what ways they should go about taking care of what it is they've encountered. So Wisconsin consistently ranks among the top 10 states in the nation when it comes to human trafficking. So I think you've pretty much explained why it's important for you to provide these programs and services for survivors. But talk about how you came up with the concept of creating Lotus.
Yeah, it started when I was teaching, and I was teaching undergraduate women at Mount Mary University, a lot of whom were first-generation college students from a lot of diverse backgrounds. And the issue of human trafficking used to be taught in such that it was just an international problem, right? Or sexual violence. It happened to other people. It didn't happen to us. Well, that was just obviously not true. And so we really started to think about survivor-centered policy change and trauma-informed lawyering. And there was a real need for that kind of information. Out of my teaching experiences, I started to get phone calls, and it would be somebody who said, I'm a detective. I just worked with a handful of trafficking survivors. They testified against their perpetrator in federal court, but now all 6 of them have legal issues just coming to the forefront, fighting over child custody from somebody that exploited them, or a traumatic breakdown that caused them to commit arson, burning down the apartment where they were kept, or a victim of sexual assault who simply just does not understand why the DA won't prosecute her case because the police mishandled her rape kit. And it just was really obvious that there was not enough legal help. There weren't enough lawyers to meet the demand, and importantly, I'm a survivor myself, I really thought that there was room for a different model of legal services, that instead of just come in, we'll do your restraining order paperwork and off you go, to something that really wrapped around a survivor and said, no matter what happened to you from the date of your victimization, any legal need that you have going forward, we are your legal home. You can come back to us again and again and again, and we will be there for you. And we'll help you get through this and find a purpose and a passion, which I know is something our next guest is going to really hit the ball on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you guys are in this fight, and there are so many people who live through this. Many of them don't know where to turn after they've been victimized, but we do hear of victims being intimidated by those who have exploited them many times. But it sounds like Lotus is there, and you found a way to not only support people legally but emotionally. Would you agree with that?
I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
I think it's what makes us different, and frankly makes us in demand. Nationally, we have lawyers from other states that are coming to Wisconsin to site visit and say, we want to understand how you do what you do, because it's different.
Yeah, and you mentioned trauma-informed law, like just understanding the levels of trauma and really being able to approach things from that understanding. And in your opinion, victims of both sex and labor trafficking experience high rates of sexual assault due to their vulnerability, but also experience extreme secondary trauma from the legal system. Talk about that.
Yeah. One study that was done by this great woman named Rebecca Campbell showed that 85% of rape survivors who have a prosecuted case experience as much or more trauma from the legal system during the process of their case being prosecuted as they do by the incident of initial assault. We also know that victims of campus sexual assault who do report to their universities, over 90% within 2 years are going to drop out. And this is horrible. These are consequences that should be mitigated. We can address them, we should address them, but it requires some systems change. So it's not enough to just be the lawyer and get in there and do the work and represent. You've got to always be thinking about systems change. So we've been working really hard on talking to universities about meeting the needs of campus sexual assault survivors better. We've been working with human trafficking task forces and with the FBI, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and our partner organizations to really just change the shape of how we intervene in cases, how soon we do it, what kind of supports do we provide. Wow. It's important.
And you guys have what's called, it's a program that you call Untold Stories, a survivor empowerment project, and then you also have a survivor scholarship fund. So you guys are, you know, taking things a step further, like I said, not only providing that legal aid, but really providing so many other things under the umbrella of what you represent.
Right. So the biggest question I get about Untold Stories is, why does a law firm need a poetry workshop? This doesn't make sense. Well, the truth is, we see so many survivors whose cases will never see legal justice. It just isn't going to happen for them. Either the statute of limitations is passed, or they have bad facts because they had a drink at a party. And those people still have a story to tell. And so Untold Stories is really about the process of using art and creative writing and legal advocacy all combined together to build empathy in communities and to allow survivors skills and training and focus to get their creative work and their voices out into the world. Because we really believe that you don't make good law without really getting it straight from the mouths of the people who've been victimized in the first place. We cannot create responsive systems until we hear from survivors. And really hearing them sometimes means you can't just do a rant on Facebook. Frankly, that's both our gift and our curse right now, is that it's an open climate for people to tell their stories and report, but a rant on social media doesn't change hearts and minds. So a poem, a song, changes hearts and minds, and that's what we need to be doing.
Wow. And you guys have a website and of course a phone number where people can call to get more information about anything that we have discussed up to this point, right?
Absolutely. People can go online and find us at lotuslegal.org, and our phone number is 414-885-1469.
All right. And Rachel, one of the main things that really captured my attention to ask you to come here today. Not only the fact that you're providing free legal help for victims of sexual assault, but the fact that last month, Lotus Legal Clinic and UMOS, which is a nonprofit advocacy organization, you guys received an $800,000 federal grant. So if you would talk about the collaboration between Lotus and UMOS and how this grant will be put to use.
We are so thrilled about this grant, and it was a lot of work to apply for it and to get all the partnerships in place. UMOS Latino Resource Center has worked with Lotus for years. They are so skilled in reaching all kinds of people in the community, but especially underserved survivors, some of whom are foreign nationals, many of whom are victims of labor trafficking, undocumented persons, and these are the people who experience victimization at incredibly high rates. They may not speak the language, their legal status is in question, they can't speak to anybody else about what's happening, and their exploiters know that. And so they lack any resources really to get help. So we have worked with Latino Resource Center at UMOS for years, and the grant provides both organizations with the funding. First of all, Lotus will be able to hire another full-time attorney, and UMOS will be able to hire a full-time victim advocate, and together we will be providing free services to victims of sexual assault. And this could be trafficked persons who are also sexually assaulted, whether that's labor or sex. And it's throughout the entire Eastern District of the state of Wisconsin. And we have partners with the district attorney's offices and the police departments in 3 cities, in Racine, in Milwaukee, and in Outagamie County, Appleton. And so those cities, those communities, those police chiefs and those DAs have stepped up to the plate and said, we want to prototype this with you, Lotus and UMOS, and create better systems for our victims. And so any person who is a victim of sexual assault, we would say, and I would say too, any victim of sexual exploitation or of labor trafficking should contact either one of the organizations, and we will be able to provide free, comprehensive legal services to them for the next 3 years.
Wow, what you're doing is incredible, and I'm just glad that you were able to come by here today and let our viewers kind of get a better idea of what it is you're doing, and like I said early on, help spread the word to those who could in fact use your services. Thank you so much for what you're doing.
Thank you.
And all the best in 2019.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Attorney Rachel Monaco-Wilcox. She is the CEO and founder of Lotus Legal Clinic. For more information on anything we've discussed today, you can call their number at 414-885-1469 or visit their website at lotuslegal.org. When we return to Our Issues Milwaukee, we'll meet a young singer, songwriter, and actress who uses her talent to bring social awareness to the injustices of the world we live in. We'll talk to Alyssa Rose right after this.